Man, I miss when Kirby's biggest problems involved retrieving stolen food. Now we're out here dealing with a cosmology where emotions have measurable physics, souls can become operating systems, and the universe keeps accidentally birthing apocalyptic gods like it's constantly in heat. Today's topic is chaos, and chaos, from my very limited understanding, is a weaponized concept in the Kirby series, one that shows up whenever the foundations of reality get smashed together hard enough that the very stars start to sweat. Chaos is the consequence of how Kirby's universe is built, because apparently if you take everything this series has been circling for years and you slam them together into a container, you don't get balance, you get a state where anything can happen, and most of it is terrible. Let's talk about what chaos really is, why it keeps appearing at the worst possible moments, and why every chaos related boss is basically the universe's panic attack made flesh. One of the most important ideas the Kirby series has been building towards is that Kirby's reality runs on 4 fundamental matters: dream, heart, soul, and dark. These 4 concepts are treated like actual metaphysical ingredients, substances that can be gathered, corrupted, fused, or hollowed out. Dream matter is creation, possibility, things becoming real because something imagined them hard enough. It's why Popstar runs on whimsy and why half the universe looks like a desert table. Heart matter is emotional force, not just love, everything. Affection, fear, jealousy, longing. In the Kirby universe, emotions don't stay inside you, they leak into reality and start doing construction work. Soul matter is identity, the thing that makes you, you. The part that persists when bodies change, when shapes distort, and when the universe tries to turn you into a screaming geometric hazard. Dark matter is absence, emptiness, a condition where heart matter collapses and something else crawls into the hollow space left behind. To put it simply, your body is dream matter, your emotions are heart matter, your awareness is soul matter, and your depression arc is dark matter. And chaos is, well, what happens when these matters don't play together nicely. Chaos is what happens when all 4 matters gather in one place and the system can't reconcile it. From how I see it, chaos is the universe trying to compute a contradiction. Now we get to the real spine of the whole thing: Void. It always comes back to Void, man. One day I'll make a Kirby video without mentioning Void, but today is not that day. Anyway, there's a Japanese pause description for Void that basically reads like the universe filing a police report. It talks about nil drifting through other skies, implying that it exists across realities, not just one. It says ancient people, likely the ancients, saw it as a shining star and recorded it in a book of riddles, which is probably the book of legends. And then suddenly, it drops the most important sentence in modern Kirby lore: dream, dark, soul, heart. With these matters, chaos and potential are completely gathered, and he is born as the origin of origins. Now you're probably thinking, what the hell does that mean? And to be frank with you, I'm not fully sure either, but I strongly believe that it's describing how Void is a sort of convergence point. Void is what you get when the 4 matters and the chaos they produce are fully concentrated into one existence. Not a demon, not an alien, not a monster, and not a boss. An origin mechanism, which is why Void isn't automatically good or evil. Void is a blank origin that reflects what's around it. Void is potential, with no guarantee it'll become something you can live with. And what if balance fails? What if identity collapses? What happens when the internal contradiction becomes too strong? Well, introducing Void Soul, Essence of Chaos. That title is very important because it implies chaos isn't merely a vibe, it's a state of being that even Void can enter, a failure mode of creation itself. So if Void is the origin of origins, then chaos is the origin going unstable. Next, we move on to soul bosses, because this is where the series has been foreshadowing chaos for ages before the word chaos even became a proper noun. Mark Soul, Drossia Soul, Sectona Soul Form, Star Dream Soul OS, Void Soul. Us Kirby fans like to treat these as the cool, hard rematches, but narratively, they're all the same story. A being losing stability. They stop being a person with power and become power wearing the shape of a person. Their bodies distort, their identity starts slipping, their attacks twist into distorted, chaotic shapes. They stop communicating like a character and start expressing themselves like a natural disaster. And that's the important part. Soul forms are identity in distress. Soul forms are what happen when soul matter is forced to keep existing while everything around it, like dream, heart, and dark, is either flooding in or being ripped out. It's a violent, unstable state, and Kirby's role in these fights is rarely execute. It's more like contain or resolve. Sometimes it looks like purification, sometimes it looks like closure, and sometimes it looks like the universe finally letting a broken soul stop screaming. And yes, I understand there are exceptions, and trust me, we will get to the biggest one. But the pattern is real. Soul forms are a step towards chaos. If soul matter is I am, then a soul boss is I am barely, and chaos is what happens when barely becomes not at all. Forgotten Land is the point where the Kirby series gets very bold. Look, Fecto Elfilis is already terrifying on paper. He's some invasive life form from deep space, capable of absorbing traits, producing weapons based on what it takes in, and crossing dimensions like a child stepping over a puddle. But the most important lore move is what happens when Elfilis reaches its end state, because the Japanese text describes the chaos state with a title that isn't vague at all. Soul Chaos. And in the Star-Crossed World material, there's an explicit explanation that makes the connection absolutely bulletproof. Soul Chaos isn't just chaos, it's a deliberate wordplay construction. It swaps the word kun in the usual word for chaos with soul while keeping the sound. Let me try to explain this a little further because it's actually very interesting. In Japanese, the word chaos already exists. The normal everyday word for it is kuntan. It's a heavy abstract term that basically means total disorder or primordial confusion. But when Forgotten Land introduces the term soul chaos, it doesn't use that word at all. Instead, the game uses soru kaosu.
Soru kaosu.
Soru kaosu.
Soru kaosu.
Soru kaosu, which literally means soul chaos, written with foreign sounding loanwords rather than native Japanese terminology. That choice, to me, is very deliberate. By doing that, the name stops sounding like a vague concept and starts sounding like a specific state or classification. It's not chaos in general, it's a particular kind of chaos defined by the soul itself. This is something that Kirby does with a lot of major bosses actually. Rather than using standard Japanese words, they will intentionally use loanwords or unusual phrasing to signal that what you're dealing with isn't normal, natural, or fully understood. It's something outside the usual rules. So when the game says soul chaos, it's not just being dramatic. The wording is telling you that the chaos here isn't random destruction. It's chaos born from a soul breaking down. Identity itself is what's gone unstable. In other words, the game is trying to tell you that this isn't just another powerful enemy. It's a being whose sense of self has collapsed into chaos, and that's what makes it dangerous. The entire point is, soul and chaos are fused at a language level, and it goes even further beyond. That same soul chaos title is used for Void Soul, the thing labeled as the essence of chaos. So now we've got something extremely important here. Soul chaos is not a one-off phrase, it's a category of state. A state where soul matter and chaos become inseparable. And that's exactly what Chaos Elfilis is described as becoming. A new species born from chaos, then escalated into a god species variant. In other words, Elfilis isn't just powerful. Elfilis becomes a type of being that the universe itself recognizes as chaos made biological. Wow, I sound like a crazy person, but that's what happens when you talk about Kirby. Okay, speculation time. If Void is the origin of origins, formed when Dream, Dark Soul, and Heart fully gather, and Void Soul is the essence of chaos, and Chaos Elfilis is explicitly labeled Soul Chaos, then it is at least plausible that Chaos Elfilis is a Void adjacent in a way we haven't fully seen before. Something more interesting. Chaos Elfilis could be a Void-like phenomenon expressed through dream matter instead of whatever primordial nil substrate Void represents. A dream-based Void. You know what I mean? A convergence being shaped by another dimension's rules. Because Elfilis behaves like the kind of existence you get when the rules of identity are optional. Think about it. It absorbs attributes and becomes them. It generates tools from what it takes in. It crosses dimensions. It warps space and time. And it even expresses itself as an orb-like chaos state. Exactly the kind of pure concept form we associate with Void tier entities. And crucially, the text doesn't just call it chaos. It calls it soul chaos. The same label family has Void Soul. Let it be known that I'm not trying to say these are the same character. What I'm saying is these are the same class of problem. Void is what happens when the four matters converge at the origin of origins. Elfilis is what happens when a perfect life form converges those same forces through invasion, absorption, and dimensional rupture. Same equation, different lab results. And if that all ends up being true, then it just goes to show that chaos is a universal failure state that multiple beings can reach if they gather enough of the four matters in one existence. Which is horrifying, because it means chaos isn't rare, it's repeatable. Now we need to talk about Morpho Knight, a very fascinating character really. Morpho is treated like a bonus super boss, but narratively he behaves like something else, like a Grim Reaper or a failsafe or a corrective force. I don't believe he shows up at random. I believe he shows up when the soul is at the brink. The Star-Crossed World material even highlights how Morpho's descriptors shift across games, how the language used for him evolves, and even how the pronouns used for him have changed over time. What I'm trying to say here is he's becoming more of a person in the text as the series goes on, which is important because Morpho's entire gimmick is identity. He takes a being and reprocesses it into something new, and that's where chaos ties in. Morpho appears around the same category of entities who exhibit collapse statuses, such as soul bosses, chaos adjacent beings, and existential level threats. To me, Morpho feels like the universe's emergency protocol, like reality itself has a hidden organ that only activates when something has gathered too much power, or too much soul instability, or too much chaos potential, and it needs to be harvested before it detonates. Which now brings us to the topic of Galactonite, the Eon hero. Morpho absorbing Galactonite before his fight even begins still supports the broader role. Morpho doesn't always wait for collapse to visibly begin. Sometimes he intercepts the threat at its source, not because of the shared title, but because of the shared category of danger. Galactonite has been sealed away for being too strong, and whenever that seal is broken, he gets his ass kicked and is sealed away once more. Galactonite is said to have been sealed away many times, so you can imagine he's understandably pissed. He's essentially a bomb ready to explode, and funnily enough, Morpho treats him as such, a good little chaos adjacent failsafe doing its job. I feel like there's so much more to Galactonite and Morpho Knight, but the both of them really deserve their own video, so stay tuned for that. The main takeaway that makes chaos so terrifying is that it's not a new power. It's what happens when the four matters reach a critical point. Dream gives you infinite possibility, heart gives you infinite drive, soul gives you infinite selfhood, dark gives you infinite emptiness. Mix them together gently, you get life. Mix them together violently, you get a soul boss. Mix them together completely, you get void. Mix them together completely inside a being that's lost ability, you get chaos. Chaos is the culmination, and that recontextualizes every chaos-related boss. Void Soul isn't just void but harder, it's void entering a failure state. Chaos Elfilis isn't just Elfilis but cooler. It's an invasion species achieving the same kind of conversion state Void represents. Soul bosses aren't just extra content, they're what happens when soul matter becomes untethered and starts sinking towards chaos. And that's why these fights feel different, because Kirby isn't fighting an enemy anymore. He's fighting a metaphysical breakdown. He's fighting the moment when a being stops being a self and becomes a contradiction with teeth. So let's review. What is chaos? Chaos is what happens when the fundamental forces of Kirby's universe, dream, heart, soul, and dark, fully converge without balance. It's potential without direction, emotion without stability, identity without a body, creation without peace. It's the universe's worst case scenario, and Kirby is the thing that keeps that scenario from becoming the default. Not because Kirby is the strongest and not because Kirby could be considered the most harmonized. It's because Kirby equalizes. He walks into a world where emotions have physics, where souls can become storms, where darkness is contagious, and he wins by being a tiny, stubborn miracle that refuses to collapse. Chaos is the warning label, and that's why every time the series drops the word chaos into a boss title, you should take it seriously. Because it's not just telling you, oh shit, this boss is hard. It's telling you, this is what reality looks like when it starts to fail. And you, yes you, are going to fix it by playing as a little pink marshmallowy baby boy who can't even form a sentence. Welcome to Kirby.